Hi guys from Yonkers Voice. Once again we have our mayor, Mike Spano, to speak with us. Welcome, Mayor, welcome to Yonkers Voice once again.
It's nice to be here. Well, actually, welcome to City Hall.
Thank you. It wasn't long ago that we had just a little interview, so I don't want to go and ask you the same questions, but we have new questions. And like Mayor Koch used to say, how am I doing? That's what this is about. Okay? And I thank you for being a person that is reachable. We always reach you out and you always answer, so thank you for that. So Mayor Spano is reachable. Mayor, we have a few issues that we want to speak with you about. Questions that were posed by our membership.
Okay.
People, they want to know how we're doing, how certain issues are being addressed. I will pose you the questions. Those are not my questions. Those are questions of the people who voted for you. Some did, some didn't.
Right.
Okay?
It's okay. They're all still entitled to answers. That's
Exactly. That's how we see it. So, just lightly about the budget. We already spoke about this about a week ago. But just for this episode, what are we doing different not to be in the same crisis as last year?
Well, remember, when I first became mayor in 2012, I had a $100 million deficit. And every year, we have had anywhere between a $50 to $100 million deficit, since, which is probably what was going on the 8 or 10 years before I was mayor. And you know, so people will say, well, what do you do differently? Well, this is the problem. If we don't have a systemic fix from the state capitol, is in terms of how we fund our city and frankly other cities across New York, then what you get is what I call the chewing gum and Band-Aid approach. I've been very thankful to our governor, to our state delegation, because they work hard for us, and they have and they have given us the means for which to close budget gaps somewhat each and every single year. So some of it's borrowing, some of it's raising revenues, and some of it's additional state aid. But if you only get what amounts to be a Band-Aid, then think about it. You're not really fixing the problem. You know, I get this from the state delegation. They say, why do you come up here every year? Every year you say, we have a $100 million problem. Every year you say, we have a $50 million problem. And I say, well, yeah, well, last year you gave us $8 million. Mm-hmm. You know, $8 million, and we raised the rest of the revenues, and you know, did what we could not to have any layoffs, but still made cuts to the budget. And so so that's kind of not your answer directly, because your answer directly is what are we doing differently, and I'll get into that more. But what I'm telling you is, unless there's a systemic change for us in terms of aid to education, aid to municipalities, and reimbursable aids for the building and rebuilding of our schools, nothing's going to change. And there'll be a new mayor who'll be doing the same thing, and they'll be doing this and playing this dance over and over and over again until there's a realization from the state capitol that Yonkers has needs that have yet to be repaired. Going back to even before the DSEG order, they've yet to be repaired. And so now, what do we do? Well, we continue, you know, to run our budgets as lean as we possibly can. We have asked the governor's restructuring board to come in because I'm confident. That's how glad I am that I asked them to come in, because I am confident when the governor's restructuring board comes in that they're going to look at Yonkers and they're going to look at what we've done over the years, and they're going to notice what the bond raters have noticed, that we've kind of changed the way we've done business. And though there are areas for which they'd like to see improvement, I agree with that. Those areas, frankly, don't really happen unless there's additional dollars. But that restructuring board and the report that they'll issue to the legislature in the next couple of months, I believe will show that Yonkers has just been a city that has been chronically underfunded and that even though we raise taxes, we raise revenues, but you know, our revenues cannot keep up with the cost of labor, the cost of energy, and the lack of increases in state funding.
So, Mayor, I guess what you're telling me that the problem is with Albany, not with mismanagement in Yonkers. Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, well, listen, you know what? I don't believe it's with mismanagement with the city, because what do we, I mean, you really have to look at the city and say, well, all right, so what are we spending our money on? I mean, that should be the question, right?
Correct.
$35 million the budget went up, right, or $32 million from year to year in the last cycle. We didn't hire any more cops. We didn't hire any more Teamsters. We didn't hire any more teachers. We didn't hire any additional people. But it was $32 million, right? Because our health care went up, our costs went up, our contractual obligations went up, and our aid has remained flat. We raised the revenues to fill in the gap. You know, so when people say, well, you know, you know, how are you spending your dollars? You know, I say, well, you know what? Look to see what we're spending our dollars on. You know, are we, you know, we adding sizable people to the mayor's office? No. Are we adding sizable people to the council office? No. You know, are we putting, like I said, I'd love to put more cops on. I'd like to see us go back to pre-9/11, which is, I believe it's about 60 cops more back then. I'd love to see us do that. I'd love to see us build another firehouse, you know, to help deal with the issue that.
What do you mean you like to see? The firehouse is
We're building into one. No, but there's another one beyond that one that the union wants us to build. And you know, but I would love to solve that. But how do you solve it? How do you solve it? You solve it with money. And the only way we're going to be able to rebuild our schools, rebuild our infrastructure, support our workforce, and deal with the high cost of especially healthcare is through revenues. And if we don't get it from the federal government, which they're not giving anything to cities these days, and we don't get it from Albany, then there's only one other place to get it, and that's from the local property taxpayers. And they're already squeezed beyond belief.
Now, Mayor, people in Yonkers, the residents of Yonkers, they seem to think that there is a friction between you, police department union, and fire department union. Is there such a thing?
No, I don't think so. You know what? There is a natural tug and pull that takes place between the executive branch of the government and the workforce. The workforce meaning the elected representatives of that workforce. I think that the founding fathers created it that way. You know, my job is to pull the strings as close as I can, you know, to monitor the overtime, keep the costs down, keep them down. And when I do that, you know, it means some of the leaders that I deal with get a little offended, or they push back because they have to show their members, that they're pushing back on that administration that's, you know, limiting your ability to get additional overtime, for instance, or whatever it is at the moment. So no, I don't. I actually like my relationship between all the first responders and the Teamsters and the teachers and the CSEA workers and the service employees. We have a great workforce. We have wonderful people in this town, and frankly, we have a great union representation. I think that I will tell you, I think that there are times that I'll disagree with the unions as to their approach, and I'm not going to apologize for that. You know, I have that out with the firefighter president all the time.
Talk about, you know, Barry McGoey?
Yes. Is that his name?
That's his name?
Okay. So, no, but he's a great guy, and I disagree with the approach. And you know, but that's okay. That's what's great about America. I mean, he has his opinion, I have mine. At the end of the day, we have a department that is funded. We have a department that has a fantastic contract. We have a department that has a brand new firehouse being built, an apartment with I think nine or so
Bays.
brand new pieces of equipment. And all of the things that our men need, training, is all being provided for, and that's what he wants. That's what I want, and we'll fight over the $300,000 fireman and the overtime issue because that's what we're supposed to do.
So this coming budget, you think that you, meaning the city, Baron Louis, Mr. Flynn, John Flynn, Lionel from the school, we won't have the same stuff from last year. Because people of Yonkers, Mayor, this is how we're seeing it. Every year is the same song and dance. We see all these things bickering one side to the other. We always say, at the end, they're going to find the money. Is that really dangerous? Is that really something that we should worry about? Or is this just show and tell?
No, it's not that it's show and tell. It's we got no money. So when you have a government that doesn't have enough dollars to really do all the things that everybody wants, like for instance, all right, so I might fight with the firemen over the overtime issue and what I think is an abuse of the sick policy that leads to the overtime. So I fight with them over that. Well, the reason I fight with them over that is because while I'm fighting with all unions about budgetary issues because I'm trying to keep the costs down, well, I also want to spend more money. And you know where I want to spend more money? I want to spend more money on building schools. I want to spend more money on repairing schools. I want to spend more money on reducing classroom size. I want to spend more money on repairing and rebuilding all 4 precincts, police precincts, or repairing and building all of our firehouses, or fixing every pothole we have, which is incidentally,
that was part of the questions.
We'll talk about that, and that's happening now, thank God. But these are the things that we want to do, but we can't. And so here is the battle. The battle is, where I'm going to push as hard as I can to reduce their costs, so I have more money to take care of the quality of life issues for the people of Yonkers. But don't think that this won't happen anywhere else. Well, this happens everywhere.
But we're concerned with Yonkers. I'm trying to get a few interviews with other mayors so I can bring that up there. Yeah. But right now,
take a look at Mount Vernon these days. Wonderful city, but there's always I always talk about the founding fathers. The founding fathers, wanted the legislature and the executive to fight too. This is what they do. It's a matter about being respectful. It's a matter about performance. In other words, letting people know your positions and articulating them in a very positive way. You'll never hear me say anything bad about any of my legal leaders ever. Mm-hmm. Now I can't control what they say. And if they lose it in the time of anger, I can't control that. I can only control what I can do. And what I do is, I treat them with respect. And for the most part, I get that back from our labor leaders. And I think that's what the people want. I know people would like a world where you don't have a tug and a pull. Yeah. And maybe that world exists in Scarsdale, where you don't have, a real crunch for money. The money's there and available, and you just have to negotiate how much money you want to give. But when you're in a city, any big city in America, especially the mid-sized cities, and the mid-sized cities which have suffered the loss of all of their manufacturing base, the mid-sized cities which have a middle-class taxpayer that's been squeezed beyond belief, and the middle-class cities or the middle-sized cities that have, dependent population that's becoming more and more dependent, whose costs are becoming more and more difficult for us to afford.
Well, Mayor, you know, I wish I could stay here with you all day long and ask a whole bunch of questions that I have, but we're restrained by time.
Yeah.
So I need to move along to something else. People are saying that you are giving your IDA too much tax brackets. I understand the logic, you want to attract other business, but at the same time, local businesses are being hurt. Not directly because of those tax brackets, but because they have no space. I can give an example, school bus on Alexander Street. They have to move out of there. They don't have a lot to put the buses. They're supposed to be providing a service to our kids. They might have to run out of Yonkers while you're bringing people from outside to Yonkers. Are you addressing the issues that affect the business that already exists?
You're asking a lot of questions all in one. You know,
Do your best.
I mean, listen, our waterfront, our beautiful waterfront, where there are, you know, was no construction, but only parked school buses, aren't exactly the ratables that we want in terms of trying to build an economic base in the city of Yonkers. We can find places to park buses. I don't know that the city's waterfront is the best spot to do it. But we do work with local developers who want to come in and provide, and they are provided, many of them are provided with tax incentives for them to come in and make investments. Xtel, which is one that was talked about recently, was $21 million. And what you have to look at the totality of Xtel, right? It's almost 1,500 units. There is no one there. You're now going to be putting 1,500 ratables, people who are going to be living in this community, who will be paying taxes, shopping, and a part of this community. You also have Xtel investing $35 million in an Esplanade Park that is going to be a requirement on our part, and so that the people who live in Yonkers, anywhere in Yonkers, will use that Esplanade Park and some of the road repairs. So I think it was a good deal for the city to offer a tax incentive in exchange for what we're getting back in returns in terms, like I said, of the $35 million in upgrades, and certainly the ratables of 1,500 families coming to the city, which is going to be huge for the city. Now, so you don't have, you know, remember, these type of tax incentives don't always go just to big-time developers. Look at some of the working families that we have right here on Riverdale Avenue, and the Mitchell Alma housing, which went for 40 years without paying taxes. 500 families, and the buildings were resold, and tax incentives were re-given, and you know there's still no taxes coming in out of that you know 500 units. Now people say, well, why do we do that? Well, because these are families. These are working families. We want to invest in the buildings, upgrade the buildings, provide for education for our kids, so that they're given the opportunity to be able to step from those buildings and into the middle class. And so, you know, so when you look at tax incentives that are offered across the board, they're not just offered just to developers who want to come here and make an investment, but they're offered to our municipal housing authority and places, to private companies that want to come in here and make investment, even in our affordable housing stock.
Well, now let's move into education. You appointed Dr. Casada. From a scale 1 to 5, where would you put him?
Oh, would you say 1 to 5?
Right. 1 being the worst, 5 being the best.
Oh, I would have him as a 5.
As a 5. So as a 5, why hasn't he paid attention to the mold issue? Because the mold issue on PS 15 was not an overnight issue. The state of New York knew about it. They gave him time to fix it. They didn't fix it. Then they received an order that get out. So we didn't address the issue for a long time. PS 23, since July of last year, been having an issue with asbestos. Has not been addressed or has been addressed. They had a big sign outside the school saying asbestos might cause lung cancer, but the school at the same time is saying there is no asbestos. Well, if there is no asbestos, why is there is a sign? And why isn't the reaction the same, Mayor, for a school that is located in a geographic area high up? The reaction is not the same as other schools. School PS 23, parents were not notified. PS 15, as soon as the city came, they are there. Why isn't the reaction the same?
I actually disagree with you. I think that the reaction has been the same. I think the reaction has been swift. I think that whenever there is a complaint,
you talked about PS 15.
Yeah, I'm talking about all the schools. I'm talking about any complaint, and I've asked Dr. Casada to make this available to me. And any complaint that was of mold or anything other than that has gone to, I believe, OSHA, has been looked at. It was deemed a clean bill of health, and the city was the city was allowed to continue doing whatever remediation, whatever the work they had to do. The time when it came back that I could tell you about, which obviously would be 15, where it came back as black mold, then they immediately moved the children from the school. That's the proper response.
But why, Mayor? Was it because they received a call from New York State that day?
No, it was because they got the test results and said that that's mold. And so when they got the test results back saying that's mold, they immediately acted. And that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to react to that. And it would be the same thing with any other issue, whether it be asbestos. Asbestos, when you have a school district that is, now you have mold. How many different schools? 7 or 8 schools that are over 100 years old. Their schools were built at a different time. Most of the stuff is contained. Most of the stuff is not a health hazard. But if it ever is remediated and it's gone. And that's what we do. And that's what the school district does, even before Dr. Casada. There are rules in place that must be abided by because it's for the safety of not just our children, which are paramount important, but of the teachers and the workers and everybody else who's there. So I don't have any evidence to suggest anything other than that's been presented to me. If you have it, I'd love to see it. But what I've seen has been, it's reported, it's checked, it's dealt with.
Well, then maybe one day I can show you some of the evidence that we have, pictures, videos with signs saying asbestos. So, but maybe it's contained. Okay, I'm just asking the question so you can tell our people that everything that comes up is addressed, is not ignored.
Right. Okay. But remember, if you have an old school, you live in a house that was built like my house, 1936, and if I decided I want to change the boiler in my house, well, you go downstairs and the pipes are all covered in asbestos. The asbestos is not a problem unless you break it up and it gets in the air.
And that is a possibility.
Right. So what do? So if I decide to change my boiler, an asbestos company comes in and they remediate it. They take it. They have negative air in the building, and they get rid of it. It's the same thing in our schools. If there is some old asbestos tile, let's say, the asbestos tile in itself is not bad. It's if you decide to remove that tile, that becomes airborne. So you have to be able to remediate it, and that's why you'll see signs up. Asbestos, why? Because they're remediating. They're taking something that's in there out, but that doesn't mean that it's in the air for our kids to breathe. There's two different things here, when you talk about mold and asbestos.
Yes. Now, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that were submitted by our viewers. This one comes from Mr. John Deary. Dear Mayor Spano, with the political climate, you switched parties from Republican to Democrat. Are you really a Democrat?
Geez, that was, I guess, about 12 or 14 years ago?
Yes, but somehow it's still on people's minds.
So it's still in John's mind, I guess. But I'm a Democrat.
So you heard John, Mayor Spano.
Check my registration.
That's it. So another one, Congressman Engel is retiring.
I've not heard that. You're the first one who's told me that.
What if he is? Would you consider?
What if he is?
Let's say,
Now listen, you get a lot of trouble for the what if he is scenario.
Well, what people want to know is, look, a lot of people like you. Some might not, but that's life. You know, we don't please everybody.
That's very true.
Right? We don't please everybody. But a lot of people like you. And maybe they want to get a feeling. We asked you many times about this third term. You said you don't know, but we know that some of the council people, John Rubo, Shanair, Mr. Sabatino, that are on board for the third limit. A lot of people want you to run. A lot of people want to see you for another term as a mayor. Donna Nolan is saying, go, go, Mike, go. She wants you. But what about if that doesn't go through and Congressman Engel goes retires? Would that be on the horizon?
It's hard to say, and I'm not. It all depends on what's going on in my life at the time. It's a big decision to, essentially spend half your life in Washington and your other half of your life here in New York. So, running for Congress is obviously a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It's something I would, if the congressman, and I don't believe that he's going anywhere, but if the congressman decided he wasn't going to be there, it would be something I would very, very much seriously consider. But I don't, it all would have to depend on, like I said, in the context of my life with my wife and my children and all that. Though my son goes to school in Maryland, so it might help. That actually might help out.
Well, I actually want.
I was just thinking about that. Actually, you know why he goes to school in Maryland? That might help out a little bit.
Mayor, actually, I want you to run, and my stake in that is I know that if you win, and if I ask for an interview with Congressman Mike Spano, I will get one.
Okay.
So hopefully,
just don't get me in trouble now. Right? So.
Well, Mayor, I thank you. I thank you for taking the time to speak with us. It's always appreciated. The people from Yonkers Voice is always happy to listen to you. Most of them are very happy, but as I said, we cannot keep everybody happy. And the task of trying to keep everybody happy, it's one that I gave up a long, long time ago.
Well, thank you, Yonkers Voice.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank
coming
you,
anytime. Love to have you guys here.
Thank you. So guys, stay tuned for another episode of Yonkers Voice here with Mayor Mike Spano. If you have any feedbacks, comment, let us know what you thought about this interview, and maybe you can ask a question online, and if the mayor has time, he will answer. If he doesn't, look, he's working for all of us, so time is not always there to engage on social media. Stay tuned for more.